Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again. It is I, screaming into the void of the internet. Let's go ahead and talk about it. All right. Something I'm going to talk about is something I've been seeing in several places. Specifically from, I guess, a lot of doomer channels and how they want you to be motivated and whatnot. And they basically say that if you want the decline to happen, that it's just essentially you giving up. And I wanted to talk about this because I have a very different outlook on this. As I've said before, I'm not a doomer. I'm not really someone who thinks that, life's meaningless just because of suffering. And the current economic place that we find ourselves, the current political place that we find ourselves, the current spiritual place that we find ourselves is cause to embrace nihilism and just think that, everything's pointless. And, because I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go ahead and activate my Frieza in me from Dragon Ball Z. If people are so sure of themselves that, everything's meaningless, why the heck does some random arse monkey's opinion floating on a blue rock in space, really equate to anything? Oh, well, you just proved my point. Oh, no, I don't think you realize what I'm saying. How are you one species on one planet, in one solar system, in one galaxy? How is your opinion suddenly the correct opinion to have for the entirety of existence? You know what I mean? So I don't really believe that I should just become a nihilist because of how negative things are. We have been in very rough points in history. We have been in very... I guess not we, but the human race as a whole has been in very rough places. We've gone through a lot worse, to be honest. And I'm not really going to fall into nihilism. But I guess this kind of conflates to another point that I'm going to make. Okay, well, why aren't you someone who wants to protect the West, preserve the West, preserve society? And I'm going to talk about this. And I made a comment on Millennial Blackpill's channel, so I do recommend you check him out. I think he makes interesting points. I do like what he has to say. I can relate quite a bit to certain experiences that he had as a kid. Not everything, but certain experiences I can relate to. Why shouldn't we help society? And it's going to kind of relate to a comment that I made, but I kind of want to expound on that a bit. For me, getting into men's spaces was not really mainly motivated by the women. I will admit that a lot of male spaces, most of the guys go there because of the women, because they want answers, because they're like, oh, how do I talk to girls? How do I do this stuff? For me, it wasn't like that. I'll go ahead and confess right now, I never really had much of a father growing up. So I sought the male spaces. And this is when I was in high school. This is quite a bit of time ago, 6-7 years ago now. I'm 25, so yeah, that's 7 years ago. 7 years ago, right? I sought those spaces because I didn't have a father. So I sought, because listen, I've always been the kind of person, and I do think that this saying is true. People who don't have dads will usually seek dads in other forms, especially men. So for me, I admired people like martial artists. I admired Bruce Lee. I admired Jackie Chan. I admired Jet Li. I admired a lot of even fictional characters as models to look up to, things to aspire to. The same way that I feel like a lot of younger kids in my generation, I talked to my friend about this, when we were in middle school, a lot of people back in the day when they watched anime and stuff like that, when they watched Dragon Ball Z, they looked up to Goku and they dreamed about going Super Saiyan. They tried to get as in shape as they could, and they freaking try and get their ki auras up, their role model was Goku. And for me, because I didn't have a role model, I sought the male spaces because I wanted to get insight on life from a male perspective. I was born to a house that was predominantly women. I have 3 sisters, and I have 2 on my bio father side, but he's really only a bio father. He's not a father, so that's unfortunate, but, I didn't really have someone to relate to from the male perspective, And it took me basically being in high school before I even really had like really, really good friends before I met my best friend, you know. So I had no one really to relate to like that. So going to these channels and learning about life, you know, I will admit again, yes, a lot of guys get drawn into that because of the girls, but you stay because of the worldview. And the more that I imbibed, the more that it was true. You know, like, you really think about it. You have always, as a male, even in traditional times, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, been seen as a second-class citizen. You have always been seen as the backbone of society, but society does not really accredit you with, you know, the proper credit that you are due, in my opinion. I'm not going to say you deserve, because that would imply that you automatically have it, but, you know, if you're doing your part, then you are in due for a bit of credit, right? Give credit where credit is due, as they say. Here's the thing. A lot of people talk about traditionalism, and they talk about how, oh, if you took women's rights away and whatnot, it would make society better, it would give men something to fight for. And I'm going to talk about this right now. I don't think a lot of people, these people who are very whimsical, who look back at traditionalism through rose-tinted goggles, really understand what they're saying. Back in the day, a fellow could kill you because your wife, just like in today's fashion, just claimed that you raped her. Now, sometimes this gal sought you out. She had an affair. Because listen, affairs, like, I don't understand why people don't understand that humans are opportunistic, you know, like, most of the time, people are only as good as they feel like they can get away with, you know. Like, if they can get away with doing effed up stuff, they'll get away with it, and they'll still call themselves a good person, you know. The example of what a good person is, you will find, usually varies across society, you know. Dramatically so. And a lot of instances, people feel as though, you know, I can be good and do a lot of effed up stuff. I can be good and cheat on my husband. I can be good and cheat on my wife. I can be good and lie to my kids about who I am. Stuff like that. The thing that we call a good person in human nature is very, very... They let a lot of crap just slide through. They let a lot of that negative crap just filter through, and that's always been a problem, because that crap matters. You know, like, even the small things, even the little things that you think don't matter, they matter, and people deserve to know and deserve to formulate an opinion. You know, you can call yourself good, and you can believe that till you're blue in the face, but, you know, if you did something effed up, and you're over here calling yourself a good person, you know, it doesn't mean that you're a good person. Not by any means. Not by any means, you know? And that happened quite often back then. People lied, especially women lied about that, because they knew that they were a protected class of citizen. If you struck a woman, regardless of if the fact that, you know, she freaking instigated something at you, you know, if you struck her, you would have men come down on you. And if you don't believe me, understand this. There have been plenty of instances across history where a chick was involved in murder, was involved in molestation, was involved in certain things, and they just essentially equated it to, well, some man messed her up. Oh, she didn't have a father. Oh, she didn't have a husband, this, that, and the other. And she got maybe a little bit of time in an asylum and then just got out. So I don't really think that people realize what they're saying. Another example that I can say is, look at historical sinkings of ships back in the day. I want to say in like the 1800s, 1900s, that period. Look at the sinking of those ships. They equate men who do not put women and children first. Because listen, you see, you're a third class. I know I said second, but when you really think about it, you're like a third class citizen. You know, it's women and children. That's not one person. You know, that's two. Women and children. You are the third. Your life suddenly does not matter as much as the woman's, and it doesn't matter as much as the kids. And I don't want to be a piece of garbage, but I'm going to just say this. I don't really think either person's life matters more. I don't think a kid's life is inherently more valuable than your life. I don't think a woman's life is more inherently valuable, you know, than a man's life. Should we die for children? I'd say maybe if they're your children. Are you obligated to just die for someone else's children? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. You know, just same way you're not obligated to feed them. It's effed up to say, but this is why, like I say, like certain people who cannot feed their kids and stuff like that, and certain people who choose to bring kids into this world really need to think about, okay, if something happens to me, who are these kids going to depend on? Like, these are things that you need to ask. And back in that time, they just felt like, no, it was just your duty as a man, and as these ships are sinking, as there's nowhere near enough lifeboats for, like, maybe the couple of hundred people on board, like, they brand all the men that fought and took a ship to, try and preserve themselves as cowards, as bastards that caused the murder of other people. How? Why? Was it your family? If it wasn't your family, why is it wrong for you to want to live? And I say this as someone who probably, I don't necessarily know if I do that. I don't really care about life as much as that, but my view is my view. It is not the correct view. It is my view. And if someone does value their life, if someone does want to go home, like, why is that the wrong thing to do in that time period? So a lot of people that want to bring traditionalism back, it's still putting men, on the back burner, just in a much different way. This society has given no outlet to men. This society is 100% against men having any sense of self-worth. If you have any sense of self-worth, you are some kind of misogynist pig. You hate women, you're an incel loser, this, that, and the other. Irregardless of what you say as truth, irregardless of what you say as, all right, here are the facts, here is the historical reasons why I feel this way, and no one cares. And it's not like it's something that's been going on for decades, like people want to believe it has, like, oh, it's just the West, it's just this. No, this is everywhere. The entirety of the world has been built on male subjugation and labor, when you really start to think about it. Slavery, okay, yeah, we had slavery, let's say that we had, like, female slaves too, but who was mainly responsible for building? You were. It was your labor, it was your back-breaking labor, burning in the sun, getting heat strokes, freaking dying and stuff like that early, getting joint pain and stuff like that. That was your labor. That was my labor. And they're going to try and get it out of you. And you don't really get a choice, when you're born into this world, especially if you're a guy. There is no life on easy mode for you. You can't just marry someone and you're just good. Back in the day, maybe, like, you married and, yeah, like, they would give you a dowry because you had to sacrifice bachelorhood and take on the responsibility of marriage, of taking care of a family, of taking care of children. And that was a very big sacrifice. That's something that a lot of guys that are obsessed with this family lifestyle just don't really fully understand. It's a sacrifice. It's not something that's awful. I don't shame anyone for it. I honor the sacrifice, but it should be something that you, yourself, decide to go under. Don't assume that everything's just going to be peaches and cream if you had a kid and stuff like that. Don't assume that if you had a wife, everything's sugary sweet. It's not. It's work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of drama. And don't think that just because it was a time period where people didn't divorce per se, that they didn't commit adultery on each other. Don't think that you didn't have husbands with, mistresses, and don't think you didn't have a neighborhood stud while, the guy was working, miles away in a field or something. Don't think that didn't happen. Or a coal mine. Don't think that didn't happen. It did. It very much did. And for me, this society, when I look at it, when I look at the subjugation, like, why would I want to save the system that has oppressed me so? You see, what a lot of us are waiting on is we're waiting on this to collapse because we want to see what's going to happen after it collapses. And it will collapse. Will it happen in our lifetime? I think so. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know the severity of the collapse. It might be way less bad, than we're making out to be. Way less bad. A lot less worse, than we're making out to be. Excuse me about that. Or it could be a lot more worse than we're making out to be. Because for me, I said this before, I think it's going to be a bloodbath. Because we have a lot that needs correcting, and they don't want to correct it the right way. They don't want to correct it, the diplomatic way. They don't want to meet you in the middle. It's, you will submit to this or else. And a lot of guys are beginning to realize that, yeah, you know what, or else. And so what we're going to start doing is we're going to start arming up. We're going to start training up. We're going to start stocking up. And we're going to become as, effective, shall we say, being very safe on YouTube, CuckTube, at dealing with aggressors. That is the path that I am personally really going down. Once I get work, one of the main things I am going to be doing is I'm going to the firing range on a regular basis. I refuse to be a victim. I train myself daily to not be a victim, but it doesn't really guarantee anything. Even if you put in all the time, someone can still just, smash your head in while you're not looking, or, slice your throat while you're asleep. So, that is life as well. But what I'm saying is this system that we see is responsible for essentially every problem that screwed you over. They're responsible for the reason that you can't own land. They're responsible for the reason that it's hard to get work. I'm in EAT right now. Why would I want to help the system that screws me over? I listen to some trad cucks try and say, well, you see, you guys just don't have direction, and what you should do is you should just join the military and blah, blah, blah. And, kudos, because I did try and join the military at one point. And without doxing too much information, they essentially tried to have me lie about information concerning my health that I tried to repeatedly disclose because they were obsessed with me being recruited. And when they basically gave me an ultimatum, like one of the last chances before, yeah, I could have chosen to lie about that, but that would have also affected my performance during, basic training and stuff like that. And so I just chose to say, hey, listen, because one of the guys, they were saying, hey, listen, you could be fined for this stuff, and yeah. So I just chose to say, hey, listen, man, this is what I have. That's all. Without getting too deep into it. And as a result, they essentially banned me from joining the military. Now, I'm sure that that's not going to apply if there was some kind of, war at hand and stuff like that. And then look at how amusing that is. That's a whole other reason. Well, you'd want to fight for the system that starts wars and then sends you to die in them. You don't have any say in it. They rob you of your freedom. They say, oh, you either have a choice. You're going to go to war or you're going to go to jail. You'd want to fight for that system. Why? Why? Well, to what do you gain by fighting for the system? Are you so afraid of change that you are honestly under the impression that the change would only make life worse? How much worse? Well, that's a stupid question because it can always get worse, but how much worse does it need to get currently for you to understand that change really needs to happen? Us not owning homes is a massive, massive problem. Us not having independence is a massive, massive problem. None of us are in a position where we are allowed to pursue a life of meaning, a life of independence, a life away from subjugation by Caesar. And a lot of people are just saying, well, that's just something I'll deal with. And I don't understand it, because for me, I have always wanted to be free. I think a lot more people in general would like to be free, but they are afraid to be free, like I said, because with freedom comes accountability. And you have to sometimes blame yourself for the position you're in. And sometimes it's not even your fault, it's just life. You can't control everything. You can't. But looking at that, why would you choose to fight for this? The reason I can't get a job is this economic climate. Why would I choose to fight for this country that has put me in this position? The reason you can't afford, to take care of yourself, to buy a house, is because of this economic climate. The reason why you're afraid to get involved romantically, and sire children, is because of the socio-economic climate. It's very expensive to have children. And then there is no reason that your significant other cannot just take the kids from you, and the house, and your money. Why fight for this? Can anyone give me a valid reason to say that we should fight for this? And you will have cocksuckers come in here and tell you that, oh, you're just thinking about the problems. What about the solutions? Sometimes the solutions can't be thought about because the problem is a multifaceted issue. There is no easy fix solution for this, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. When the collapse happens, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty at all. And what will happen is a power vacuum will form. And you're going to see a lot of instances where people are trying to fill in that power. And they're going to struggle to fill in that power. You know, if you don't believe me, you can look at a lot of places. One of the places I'd say that you can look at is Japan. Japan's history of power vacuums and people trying to fill power and conquer land, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. You know, you can look at that stuff. Not saying that we're going to follow the same path of Japan, you know, during the feudal era, but listen, power vacuums are real, you know. You know, one of the things that, you know, Elden Ring's DLC, you know, this character, her name is Needle Knight Letta. She said that man, by his nature, is a creature of conquest. And that's true, and it's not just associated, again, to men. It's associated to humanity. You know, we are creatures of conquest. And the only way that you stop that is when you essentially choose not to give into that. You acknowledge that it exists in you, and you choose not to hearken to it. You know? So, looking at it, again, why fight for this? What do you gain out of fighting for this? You know? Because I know what side I'd fight for. Excuse me. I know what side I'd fight for. And it's not degeneracy. It's not diddlers of children. It's not bastards that want to keep the state more powerful. I'm sure you know what side I'm talking about. You know. It's not bastards that think that there's trillions of genders. It's not bastards that think that it's okay to lock men away and throw away the key because someone pointed a finger at them and said that they did this. It's not them. Not by any means. But that doesn't mean that because I would fight on the side of the other ones, that means I agree with absolutely everything that they stand for. Because I don't. Life is not that simple. The world's not that black and white. Black and white exists, but there's also gray. I say this all of the time. Black and white does exist, but there's also gray. And looking at life and looking at the complexities of life and looking at the nature of human history, nothing really makes me want to commit 100% to any side. You know? Nothing. I am not a very incentive-based creature because I know where that comes from. I'm not motivated sexually. It's not that I do not have sexual urges, but I know, learning about like life and like I said, you know, learning about male speaking spaces, that sex has been used to manipulate men for thousands of years. And once you learn that, you can either make two decisions. You can still go forward with it and try and be cautious, or you can say, you know what, even though I have sexual desires, even if I choose to enact on my sexual desires, I will not be manipulated through them. I will not be made a fool of because I have them, and I will not let someone use me because I have them. And that's the route I've chosen to go. I can't say that's the route that all men choose to go, because it's a very hard route to walk. Because when someone's dangling the carrot, and you really think you're going to get it, you're willing to do a lot of stupid stuff. That's why you have simps so much, you know. But when I look at this, and I take all of this into account, no part of me is motivated because of money, because of this so-called currency-based system that means nothing, that is built on slavery, that is built on debt. You just being born indebted to society. You, who do not get a say in your existence, is somehow born indebted to society, and they use that to tax you. They use that to steal from you. They use that to manipulate you. They use that to rob every facet of your humanity from you. It's not your right to put food in your belly without a permit. It's not your right to get water without a permit. It's not your right to set up electricity even if you have the know-how without a permit. Because you take away power from the state, and they don't like that. It's not your right to own land, even though you have to tend to it. These are things that you have to think about. And as you accept the reality that you're in, as you accept that, you know, like, yeah, this is how things are, why in good conscience would you then fight for it? You get it? You're fighting for your oppressors. You're fighting for the people who would screw you over. And so, looking at that, I've made my decision. A lot of other guys have made that decision. We will not participate. We will not participate in this. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be a neat or something like that. Because listen, you have plenty of workers that are here, and but they say, you know what? I'm gonna look up other things. I'm gonna look up tiny homes. Tiny homes are exploding. The views that these things are getting. I remember back in the day when I was looking at it, maybe a couple 100,000. We're talking 20 million, 10 million, 5 million views on some of these videos, on some of these like home building projects. Why? People want their independence back. They know that this crap's a sham. They know it's a lie. They know it's not this expensive to like be able to have a place to call your own. But the state has ensured that that has happened. And they're sick of it. Mobile homes are blowing up. Any facet where they can say, get off of my back, Caesar, that is what they are choosing to pursue. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them in the slightest. Because it's about time that we take our power back. It's about time. I will not participate in this usury-based system as much as I can avoid it. If I can have my little RV, my little houseboat, little shack or something, and I can be at peace, I'm going to choose that. I don't care about society. Because society doesn't care about me. Society doesn't give me a voice as a man. And when I do speak, go F yourself. You incel cocksucking loser. You're a misogynist pig. That's what they think of you. And I'm not the only one. All men probably can attest to the same thing. Merely for stating the obvious. And again, no matter how much they hear, they don't care. So at some point, you have to choose. Do I continue to beat my head against this brick wall, hoping that enough dents into this wall are going to lead to a crack, and the wall is going to break, resulting in change? Or can I change my approach, and instead of beating my head against this wall, I just walk away from it? That's what I've chosen to do, and that's what a lot of other men have chosen to do, and they don't really care. Maybe they'll look back and see if they're missed, and grin and gloat to themselves a bit, as I think that they should. Because it's very interesting how the world tells you you're useless, but then when you say, okay, I'm useless, I won't provide my uses to the world. Where are you going? You can't just drop out. I know I'm treating you like dog crap, but please continue to smash your head against this wall. No. That's what a lot of us are doing. Because like I said, for me, I don't need a big family. I don't need tons of money. I don't need all this stuff. I'm not driven by that. I just want peace. I just want peace. I want a little place to call my own. And I want to have peace of mind. And I think that that is something that we should all strive for. We are so overburdened by pursuit of various things that have little meaning, that don't really have much value, things that can be taken from you very easily. And I think that what we should pursue is the ability to be at peace. The ability to say, I am fine with my life. Because if you're fine with your life, you're in a very decent position. Because a lot of people that might have a lot more than you are not fine with their life. The amount of people that deal with anxiety and stuff like that today is astronomical. It's astronomical. If a monk just chilling in his robes in prayer is satisfied with his life, he's successful to me. If a guy living in his truck that he converted into a little bit of a home is satisfied with his life, he is successful to me. And I think as more and more men take into account that success is not dictated by what society thinks, because society is always evolving, therefore success will always be changing with it. But success is more determined by what you, as an individual, value, and how you care about the state of your life. I think it'll be a lot better for us. I really do. I know that that's hard, though, because a lot of doomers really just feel like everything's meaningless. But I'm not really selling hope. I'm not going to pretend like the road that you're going to go down is going to be easy. But I can guarantee that at least having an objective in your life to be at peace in some capacity and working towards that objective, it's a lot better than just feeling like garbage all the time. I know I don't have a job. I know I'm still in need. But I'm working towards it because I know the goal that I have in mind. And it's not grandiose. And I'm telling you, when you don't have some grandiose goal, it gets a bit easier. Because listen, I know people say, well, you'd have to wage slave and this, that. Well, but then it wouldn't really be slavery. Because if I get an RV, and I'm living in the RV, I don't pay rent. So I'm saving thousands of dollars. It's not going to feel like slavery then. It's going to be comfortable. You just have to find ways to think outside the box and adapt to this. Because the thing about humanity is we are a very adaptive species. We can live on anywhere in the planet. We're living in Antarctica, for God's sakes. We are very adaptive. So we can find a way to adapt. And it's my hope that we do. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I hope that explains, at least in my opinion, the reason why I feel like a lot of guys just say, I'm not going to fight for the system. I'm not going to care about how someone says that I shouldn't hope that this thing fails, because I do hope it fails. I do. I relish the thought that this system is going to fall apart. And these cocksuckers that have screwed over humanity for years, they are going to be looking over their shoulders, because they will have to answer for this stuff. Because when this collapses, all of this history isn't necessarily going to go away. All of the photos of these cunts, the archives of information, that's not necessarily going to go away. So unless, you get put back in the dark ages, it's not going to go away. And there will be a point where you will answer for this. Be it here, or be it in the next world. So, I hope that clarified a few things. And let me know your opinion, Are you someone who wants this to fail? If so, why? Is it something similar, or are there more, reasons in your own opinion? Hope you all enjoyed. God bless, and I will see you next time.